without any further ado, Michael, thanks for joining us today. I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for the introduction. Thank you everyone for being here. Very excited about Ubiquiti and the Unifi solution, and let's just jump right into it. Again, my name is Michael Moss, Inside Solutions Specialist at Ingram Micro. I exclusively handle the Ubiquiti line card, not just the Unifi portion of that line card, but the entire line card. And we're going to focus mainly on Unifi, but I will definitely touch on the other Ubiquiti product lines that they offer, because there's a lot of cross-sell opportunities between the product lines where you might need to incorporate multiple different product lines in a single solution. So let's just jump right into it.
Hey, Michael, really quickly, let's
Yes.
discuss the relationship between Ingram and then AllNet, MRI, Volutone, and Custom Plus.
Right. Yeah. So we're a premier distributor of Ubiquiti products, and AllNet is one of our partners here that's able to source Ubiquiti from us. And yeah, we operate like that. We have a good working relationship. So the Ubiquiti, kind of the elevator pitch for their product line comparing to other premier networking manufacturers, the main bullet points: no service fees, no certification required, and no support costs. You don't have any type of subscription fees for cloud hosted controller services like you might with some other networking manufacturers out there. Ubiquiti does offer a hybrid cloud solution, which I'll get into in a little bit, but there's no recurring costs or license fees associated with that. We'll jump into some of the access points here. These are the newer models on the line. You can see, starting at the left-hand side, both the standard and the premium option are in-wall access points. You see these a lot of the time in hospitality type environments, hotel rooms. You also see them in conference rooms and stuff like that. The utility of these products are they provide Wi-Fi, but they also have some Ethernet ports available on them. So if you have any wired only devices, maybe an older laptop, something like that, you have ports available to plug those units in. The next model, the Nano HD, this is coming to be kind of the standard baseline that we're going to be using moving forward for the Ubiquiti access points. It's a wireless AC Wave 2 access point, supports up to 200 plus clients. That's kind of the standard option, and then a big step up from that, the one that you see below it, the premium option, the UAP XG. It's quite a step up, as you can see, from 200 clients all the way up to 1,500 clients. It supports a 10 gig Ethernet input, so you're going to get a ton of bandwidth out of this access point and support a lot of clients. So something like a high traffic hallway, a conference room, something like that, you'll see the same model listed as the conference room option for the standard, the UAP XG. The UWB XG is basically just the outdoor rated version of this access point. Same number of clients, same amount of bandwidth available from the access point, but the difference with this one is that it's outdoor rated. It also has directional antennas built in. This is one that's made for like stadiums, very high density environments. So those are some of the newer models, some of the top performing models that they offer nowadays. Here's just some more detailed specs on those. We have the in-wall here, or I'm sorry, this is the HD in-wall. There's the Nano HD, mentioned that one. The UAP XG, and then the UWB XG, the outdoor rated option. We do have this handy dandy cheat sheet here for the Unifi access points. This is an internal resource that our pre-sales team has put together. It just kind of shows quick side-by-side specs of all of the access points available, the ones that we were just talking about, and then some of the older ones. You see here the UAP AC Pro access point. This is their top seller by a long shot. It's a very versatile access point, fits a lot of different applications. And for me personally, when I'm going through some type of a discovery call, solution design, that's where I always start. That's kind of the baseline, and then you can either move up from there. You see the Nano HD is listed above that one to the right of it, because it could support more users than the Pro. It's a 4x4. It's wireless AC compared, wireless AC Wave 2 compared to the Pro is wireless AC Wave 1. So the Nano, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be the new standard moving forward. The Pro's not going away just yet, but pretty soon, I would say probably within a couple of years, the Nano is going to be replacing that. And then you can see as you go up, the price, obviously, this is all MSRP. These prices are obviously going up as performance goes up. And you can see also the number of users here. So quick specs, you know, asking simple questions on a discovery call. How many users are we looking to support in the environment? That sort of thing can kind of narrow down which product you're going to be looking at. And then we can take a look at their switching offering, because you obviously need something to plug these access points into. They do have switches starting at 8 port with 60 watts of PoE available. So this option here is 8 total ports, 4 of them are PoE, the other 4 non-PoE, and then it has a total of 60 watts available in its power supply. The switch itself uses 12 of those watts, so the maximum PoE output is going to be 48. And then you can see how that correlates moving up the chain here. This next one's an 8-port full PoE option. So if you do need more than 4 PoE ports, you would go with this option. It also has a couple of SFP ports on there, so you can connect some fiber to it if you need to. Moving up, the 16-port option, that's again full 16 ports of PoE. And again, some fiber uplinks available. And this last option, the 16-XG, is full 10 gig SFP plus switch, so 16 SFP plus ports, and, or I'm sorry, 12 SFP plus ports and 4 RJ45 ports. The last couple models here, these are our larger PoE switches and non-PoE, the 24 port options. Again, the last part of the part numbers shows you how much wattage is available in the power supply overall. And then the switch itself uses some of that. And then down here, we show you how much total, how much total PoE is going to be available for your devices. So you could divide that up over how many ports you're going to be populating with PoE devices. So 24 port options, non-PoE, light PoE, full PoE, again, 48 non-PoE, light PoE, full PoE. And when I say light PoE, just meaning that if you were to populate all 48 ports of this 48 port switch with PoE devices requiring power, you might want to look at the 750 watt option, just because you'll have more watts per port available. If you ever needed any type of help with that, our team can always crunch the numbers for you and figure out what devices are going in which ports, how much power they're going to need, and make sure that the switch that you're selecting is going to be able to support all of those. Next on the Unifi line card, firewalls and routers. Now there used to be a third option over here, so I apologize, my graphic is a little cut off here. They did just recently discontinue the 10 gig option. They're currently working on developing a new one. So for the time being, we have the standard USG, which is kind of a small, about the size of a home wireless router you might have at home. It does not have wireless built in, however. It is made for SMB to SMB customers, home office users, stuff like that, because you will need to add a wireless access point in order to have Wi-Fi. And then the step up from that, the USG Pro, more ports available. It also has SFP ports, whereas the standard USG is only Ethernet. So additional options there with fiber that you can connect to it. And just kind of some light specs here on the memory and the processor, and a rough estimate of how many clients it can support. And you can see the list price here kind of correlates with the performance upgrade. And next we have our Wi-Fi controllers. So this product I want to spend a little time on, because there's always a little confusion around the Cloud Key products. I think because they branded it as a Cloud Key, a lot of people associate the word key with a license key. But this is not a license, it is a physical product. So what this product does is it hosts the Unifi controller software, which is how you manage all of your Unifi access points, switches, and security gateways. That software is completely free to download, and there's no per device licenses. But you do need to host that somewhere on your network in order to manage your access points. So what Ubiquiti has done is they've created a low cost, all-in-one controller that just comes preloaded with that free software, and all you're paying for here is this little piece of hardware. So this Gen 2 model here is it's slightly larger than like a USB thumb drive. And I'll show you the next model in a second here, but this model can support up to 40 access points and as many switches as you have, as many security gateways as you have. It's typically recommended one of these products per site. So if you were dealing with a customer that had multiple sites, there are other ways to do it, but probably the easiest way to spec out the solution and deploy the solution would be to set up every site using its own cloud key. So you'd have however many switches and access points at that site. If they choose to go with the Ubiquiti security gateway, or if they're using a third-party firewall, that's fine. But to manage everything, it's just way easier just to pitch them the $179 cloud key and just have that, plugged into one of your switches and living in the environment, and that'll be how you manage it, manage all of your devices. Now, I said there were some other ways to do it. You could potentially, that free software to manage multiple sites, say you wanted to have a one central location where you're managing all of your end users, or if it's a larger customer that has many branch offices, they want to manage everything from a central location. You can take the free software, you can install it on your own server in the environment, or on a virtual machine, or even in a cloud server, something like AWS. And you can actually point all remote sites back to that unit. Now, to take if you're going to go that way, you need to take into account bandwidth between the sites and making sure that, if you lose a connection to one site, you're not going to miss out on any like mission critical features that are supported by the cloud key. But that's getting, a little nitty gritty. Each individual solution is different. If there are ever any question about that, we can always help you guys out. So that's the Gen 2 model. The Gen 2 Plus model that you see here is a small step up in that. Obviously, it's only $20 more list price, but it has some added features that are pretty cool. So it can manage the Gen 2 was up to 40 access points. This model can manage up to 50. But there is a caveat, because this product can not only manage the Unifi networking equipment, the access points, switches, and gateways, but it can also actually manage Ubiquiti's cameras if the customer was interested in cameras, or they think they might want them in the future. Using the Gen 2 Plus instead of the standard Gen 2 cloud key could just enable them in the future. Just say, hey, I need a couple of cameras. We've already got the management device in place. You can just add them to the network, and it's really simple. So if you are running both the network management and the camera management on this product, the limit of access points goes down to 40, just like the standard Gen 2, and then you can manage up to 15 cameras with this unit. Now, again, if a customer was interested in a Unifi networking solution, and they were also interested in a Unifi Protect solution, but the scale was beyond what this unit could handle, 15 cameras and 50 access points, you could choose to download the network management and the camera management software from the website. Again, both of them are free. There's no per device licenses. You would just need to find your own hardware to run them on. The device limit is dictated by the resources that the machine has available. So if you build a more powerful server and install the software on it, it can support more devices pretty much. Now we're just going to take a quick look at the Unifi controller management interface here. So this is a really cool demo site that Ubiquiti offers. There's no, it's completely open for anyone to jump in and take a look at. So I always like to send this to customers to show them some of the cool features they're going to get. I won't go too deep into the technical stuff here, but I just wanted to kind of show you guys the interface and some of the cooler features. You can see all types of statistics of what's happening on your network. So this is actually a real site. This is showing us one of, I believe it's outlets at Castle Rock. So this is one of Ubiquiti's deployments here that they have in their demo, and you can see how many clients are connected, how much traffic is currently going over the network, that sort of thing on this statistics tab. And one of the cooler features that I always like to show off here, you can get a view of your network topology, which is pretty cool. But the cooler feature, I think, is you can actually import a floor plan into the software of your facility, and then you can drag and drop. It's kind of hard to see with the color scheme here, but you can drag and drop your access points onto it, and then that would correspond with, you would name each access point accordingly, and then that would correspond with, when you're looking at your statistics, it'll have the name of the access point there. You could then, if you don't know them all off the top of your head, you could just pop right back over to your floor plan map, and you'd see physically where that access point is located. So kind of all wraps all back into one, and just for more visibility, that sort of thing. Devices, you're going to see every single device that's under this current site. So here they have mostly these wireless AC mesh units. They have a couple of, they have a gateway and a couple switches down here. But if there was anything wrong with them, they're all up and running right now. Or I'm sorry, these looks like these might be updating. So that's what that is. But yeah, it just gives you a quick snapshot of all of the devices that you're managing. And then clients goes even further and shows you the individual clients that are connected to those access points. So you can see the device names here, their IP addresses, how much downloading they're doing, how long they've been connected to the network, that sort of thing. So if anyone was doing anything fishy, you'd be able to isolate that client and decide what to do with them. And then Insights is where it takes note of any like events that take place on the network, any issues that are going on. This is where it would show you, hey, there's a rogue access point here. And then depending on how you have your network configured, it could have either taken action already on that rogue access point if you have it set up to take action without checking with you, or it would maybe send you a push notification to whatever management console you're using to manage this. This is all available, not every feature, but they do also have a mobile app. I couldn't really see any larger enterprise customers using the mobile app, but if it was a small business or even a home user, something like that, getting a notification that someone, a user from the other side of the world, I don't know, say China, was trying to access your network, it'll pop right up on your phone, and you can immediately deny access, make sure that they don't get in. So that's just kind of a quick look at the networking, the Unifi SDN interface, and some of the features that are offered there. Let's take a look. So we mentioned the cameras already. We'll take a look at the models that they offer here. Starting with the G3 Flex, all these G3 options here are 1080p resolution, up to 25 or 30 frames per second. I believe the Flex might only be 25, but the other ones are 30. And the Pro and the AF and the Dome all have IR LEDs built in for night vision, of course. Most of the models also have a built-in microphone. Sometimes need to be careful with that, depending what region you're located in. There's certain laws about recording audio. So that's just, something that just keep an eye on. The UVC G3 Pro is IP67 rated, so it is fully rated to be outside in the elements, water and dust resistant. The other models, the standard G3, the G3 Flex, the G3 Dome, if you had to put them outside, if you could mount them under some type of an awning, an eaves, something like that, where it's not going to be in direct contact with rain or snow, they should still be able to perform, but it's usually recommended to go with one of the IP67 options. So those are the four standard 1080 options, and then we do have one 4K camera that was released earlier this year. So it does jump up in price quite a bit, but it also jumps up in performance quite a bit. So you're going to get 4K resolution. It does have an optical zoom lens that you can remotely zoom in and out. It's not it does not pan or tilt like some other manufacturers make pan, tilt, zoom cameras. It just zooms. But again, this one is also, any camera that they're going to release that says Pro is going to be IP67 rated. So fully waterproof, dust proof. You can put it outside in nearly any climate. Obviously, extreme cold and extreme hot, extreme heat may not be good for it, but they do have a pretty aggressive temperature range that they can operate within. And here, there's just some more information from the Ubiquiti website on the Unifi Protect solution. Here they show some of the interface. They unfortunately don't have a demo site like they do for the network controller that I can show you live feeds from the cameras, but it looks very similar. It's very clean interface, and they just kind of show here again the different models offered. Our Gen 2 Plus Cloud Key that I mentioned earlier. So comes with, we'll get a little deeper into that one right now. I mentioned the 20 cameras. It does come with a 1 terabyte hard drive for video storage. For this product, you can swap that hard drive out for any 2.5-inch SATA drive. Up to 5 terabytes will be compatible. So if they need more storage than 1 terabyte allows them, they can upgrade it. And of course, there's a mobile app. So if you were to install these in your home or a small business that you own, any type of motion event during hours where there's not supposed to be any motion, you can set it up to send you notifications and can just pull it right up on your phone and see what's going on. So pretty useful. All right. And we have some resources here. Ubiquiti is somewhat light on the support that they offer directly from the company. There's no 800 number to call to get support, but they do have a very robust community, kind of by necessity because there hasn't been any support. So the community has kind of lifted themselves up and are supporting each other. So they have the community forums here, which some customers will just post issues that they're having on the forums, and other customers will chime in with potential solutions, and Ubiquiti badged employees will chime in and say, here's the best possible solution for this issue that you're experiencing. Or if a user has already posed the correct solution, they'll pin that as like the top post on there. So they do police their community and make sure that correct information is being distributed. They have a whole knowledge base of help articles and any type of frequently asked questions that they get all the time. They have all the answers up there. The demo we went through already, I showed you guys that one. They do have some training guides that kind of go over some of this information as well. There's a direct store. Everything is at list price, obviously, there. And they do post their own YouTube videos with some product information on their YouTube channel. So that was it for my slideshow. That pretty much covers the Unifi product line, but I did want to touch briefly on some of the other product lines that they offer because they do come up pretty frequently. So we went over the access points and the switches. The next product line we're going to take a look at is another networking line. So the Edgemax line offers routers and switches, no wireless, but they do offer routers and switches. These products are all standalone. So whereas the Unifi solution was centrally managed, single pane of glass, wireless switching and routing all managed through that interface, all of these products are managed independently. So if you had a customer that just needed one switch to support one camera or something like that, and they weren't using Ubiquiti cameras, because again, it would make sense to manage those together with the cloud key. These might be a good fit for those independently managed opportunities. So again, PoE options, non-PoE options, fiber options available if they need gigabit or 10 gig fiber runs. Those options are all available, and they do have some hardened switching options if there's any type of need for an industrialized switch. So those are available as well. So that's Edgemax. Oh, and I'm sorry, the last point on that, the Edgemax switching line does support some layer 3 routing all of the Unifi switching line is layer 2 only. So if a customer absolutely needed some layer 3 routing at the switch level, Edgemax would be their best bet. So just keep that in mind. Then next to Edgemax, we have Airmax. Now these last two product lines I'm going to go over, or these next two rather, there's one more after them, but Airmax is for point-to-point and point-to-multipoint wireless bridging. So they are wireless radios, but they're not wireless access points. So what we went over earlier, the Unifi access points are all for client access, connecting cell phones, tablets, laptops to them for individual clients. These products can only talk to each other. So if you had two buildings across the street from each other that you needed to connect, you would maybe set up two of these products on either roof pointing at each other. You would use the included software to dial in the connection, make sure it's as strong and reliable as possible. And then once it's up and running, the network basically sees this connection as if it was just an Ethernet cable connecting the two sites. So that's what these are used for. And so single point to point, also point to multi-point is supported. And I'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. These ones are all in the 10 to 15 to 25 kilometer range. All the numbers are in metric for whatever reason. But so 10 to 15 to 25 kilometers at speeds up to 450 to 500 megabits per second. And these ones all run in the ballpark of, I think the lowest cost option is $79 list. And one of the more expensive ones, I think, is like $129 list price. So they're pretty cheap and they're pretty reliable. Now, a big step up from that is going to be our Airfiber line. These are much longer range in most cases and much higher bandwidth support. So these are more for like the carrier grade wireless backhaul situations. The top seller on this one would be the Airfiber 5. Operates on the 5 gigahertz frequency. It's capable of gigabit plus speeds at ranges up to and a little bit over 100 kilometers. So that one can go quite far and has very high bandwidth. If you were in a situation, again, to use the two buildings across the street from each other example, if they were very close, you know, a couple 100 feet apart, not 100 kilometers, but they still needed that gigabit plus speed, you could still use these things. The minimum distance, you wouldn't want to be any closer than about 100 feet for these radios. They're quite large and they're very powerful. So if they're too close, they actually won't be able to communicate. So 100 feet minimum, gigabit plus speeds. And they do have, you see these units here have the radio dishes kind of built into them. These next options here, the Airfiber X, those are just the radios themselves, and then you would add them, you would combine them with one of these antenna options to get you the same solution that these come just kind of pre-assembled. And the reason they do offer this modular option is because they have some multiplexer products where you can use multiple radios for redundancy and also for link aggregation to get better speeds, or just in case one of the radios were to go down, you'd have a redundant one right there next to it that's ready to kick in and take over. So these ones are single point-to-point only. And what we'll take a look at right now, they have a really cool planning tool for the Airmax and Airfiber products. And let's see, we can start at, so what you can do is input either, University of Buffalo, go. You can input an address and add a radio here. So this is not what I was looking for, but we'll just go with it anyway. You can add a point-to-point connection and plot your second point. So it automatically plots it on there for you, but you can click and drag it to any other location. So say this was where we lived and we needed to bridge to our office for some reason. You can do that and it will actually show you, you can see here, the Fresnel simulation is showing you the wireless kind of cone excuse me, for the 2 points. And this down here is actually showing you the ground level. So if you were too low, you can see it intercepts with the ground. It's telling you you're not going to get maximum performance out of this. So this is a really cool planning tool that I've not seen anyone else have anything like this. And this can really help you dial in which products they should be looking at, for the optimal solution. So we mentioned single point to point. That's what you're seeing here, 1 point to 1 point, and we're using one of the Airfiber products on this. We could switch it over to Airmax if we wanted to, not a problem. Go with the nano beam, and it automatically populates the opposite end with the same product. Now, say we needed to connect multiple sites together back to one location. So there's our office, there's our house. Let's say another one of our employees needs to be connected in. So let's take this device here and we're going to swap it out for one of our multi-point base stations. So the light AP-AC is recommended for multi-point because it has 120-degree wireless sector. So that unit can actually, here we go, signal strength. So we can connect multiple devices back to it. So if we add another point here, and nope, I'm sorry, let's delete that one. Well, we can connect it back. There we go, easy. So we're gonna go, this one was our, oops, this is our light AP. What happened here? Here we go. Go nano beam. Go. So that can give you an idea of plotting and what kind of performance you're going to get in the real world environment. So cool planning tool there. You can give that out to end users that are interested in it and they can use it themselves, or I've walked people through it and kind of help them understand the tool. We can always help you guys out as well. So that's for point to point, point to multi-point. And the very last product line that I wanted to cover here today would be the Amplify line. Now, this product line is Ubiquiti's consumer product offering. So they're most comparable to home wireless routers and home either access points or wireless extenders, wireless repeaters, that sort of thing. They're very easy to set up and use, completely plug and play. They sell them in a bundle that includes one of the mesh routers, which does output its own wireless, and then it also includes a couple additional mesh points. So if you have a large home, or it could even fit a small business, a small retail shop, small coffee shop, something like that. Doesn't just have to be for home use, but these will cover the area with wireless and provide client access. The Amplify line is pretty highly restricted by Ubiquiti. They ran into some issues early on with online retailers selling them for too cheap and kind of degrading the margins for everybody across the board. So they've put restrictions on the product, but we are able to get approvals. We just need to ensure that it's you're not just buying in bulk just to try to put it up on Amazon and undercut everybody. If it's for a project, if it's for your own use at home, you're going to test it and maybe offer it as a solution to your customers, that's fine. We can get all those things approved. We've had some customers that are local internet service providers, and they were going to use this product as their standard, home router for new subscribers. So, Spectrum or Time Warner, whoever you use, gives you a wireless router as part of your contract with them. This is the product that some of the local ISPs we've worked with we're going to use and position. And that sort of thing is, Ubiquiti would love to hear that if you have any type of opportunity to position this product in that sort of scenario. Ubiquiti loves that, so we can definitely get those approved. And that about covers all of the products that I wanted to speak about today. I think we can open it up for questions now.
All right, one of the things I wanted to ask if you would cover a little more depth
Sure.
is the Unifi controller management software. To look at all of these all the projects that you might have under your purview. If you're,
Oh yeah, yeah.
let's say our guys are resi integrators or light commercial integrators where they've got, like 17 hair salons,
Hmm.
veterinary offices, etc., or high profile residences.
Sure.
They
Yeah.
got like 20 or 30 residences that they're managing.
Absolutely. Thank you for reminding me that. So earlier we saw this interface, and I did mention a couple times that when you're looking at your device list, this is all the devices for this particular site. So great point. Great question. There, you can see here in the top right. So this is the username we're logged in under. If it was your actual interface, you'd see your credentials there. We could log out of the demo and log into someone else's account if we wanted to. But here we see this site was FedEx Forum. So it's very simple, just a drop down menu here, and you can switch that over to the office, and then you can see completely different list of devices. If we were to look at the map, you can see the topology map is much smaller, and then if we look at the floor plan, they have it set up, it's a completely different floor plan. So this is just where you switch between sites, and it's pretty simple. You can also obviously add new sites, and you can do that either, so let's say demo submit. So we've just added a new site here. Sorry, these pop-ups are in the way. And we can choose our new site here. Obviously, there's not going to be any, it's not letting me switch to that one. Probably because there's no devices on it. But anyway, so import site would be, I believe, if you've already deployed a cloud key and you've kind of deployed it as standalone, you could then go back to your central management location and import that site into your dashboard. So that would be how you would onboard new sites, new customers, stuff like that. Thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate it. I did forget to mention that earlier.
All right. So one of the questions that came in, of all ways, via email.
Okay.
Let me see. So Paul asks, can we spend a moment discussing the use case for the new Unifi Flex XD access point? And also any installation pros and cons of AC Pro HD, and the ceiling mount versus the wall mount with respect to propagation, polar graphs, coverage, etc.
Okay, sure. So let's start with I'm sorry, the Unifi Flex HD it was, right? So
Yeah,
that
that
one,
was the first portion of the question.
yeah, so let's start with that. So that is a brand new product. As you can see, it's not listed. Oh, nope. Excuse me. Foot and mouth. There it is. So this one is it's kind of like again, it's kind of bridging the gap between enterprise access point, as you can see in this graphic, where it's mounted on the wall. That looks more like someone's home, but the one before that looked like some, public place. Here you go, beach. So it's outdoor capable. It's made to kind of be either like cover your whole home, like a home wireless router. Although it is just an access point, you'd still need your security gateway router. Um, but it's made to kind of be like a central point of wireless for a small office or a home user or a public area like that. And the HD portion, anytime you see HD in one of the Ubiquiti access point names, it stands for high density, which means it's going to be wireless AC Wave 2. So it's going to be able to support more users than any of the Wave 1 options that they offer, which was the UAP-AC Pro, the UAP-AC Lite, the UAP-AC LR. So all the wireless AC Wave 2, all the HD options, higher client density supported, more bandwidth available. Coverage patterns are going to be pretty similar. I can't speak to this specific, the Flex, the Point Flex HD. I know that when we were comparing the Nano HD compared that coverage pattern to the UAP-AC Pro, they're very similar. So really what you're getting is not greater coverage, but greater density support. So that's what you're going to get from these ones.
Okay. The second half of that question from the
Yeah.
first user was AC Pro versus AC Pro HD.
Right.
the wall versus the ceiling. So
Yeah.
essentially, we're looking at really similar coverage.
Yes. So the coverage itself is going to be very similar. I'm just going to go back to the main page here. Um, the coverage pattern is going to be very similar. Now, any of these, to step back from that for a second, and if it's at all possible, these access points you're always going to want to mount on the ceiling, unless you have very, very high ceilings and you're not able to get some kind of telescopic or, you know, drop down mount for it, which Ubiquiti doesn't offer. It would have to be some kind of hardware that you fabricate maybe. And the reason for that is that they have the built-in omnidirectional down tilt antennas, as is very common in other manufacturers' access points for like kind of standard indoor ceiling mounted options. So the coverage pattern is kind of like a donut around it that's running parallel to how the access point is. So if the access point is laying flat, it's kind of, you know, the donut is around it, providing wireless. So if you were to mount that on its side on the wall, you're still going to be able to connect to it, but it's not going to give you, it's not made to be mounted that way and you still get optimal coverage. If you had a scenario where you had to wall mount it, you had no way to ceiling mount it, I'd recommend moving away from the circular indoor access points and considering one of the Unifi mesh options. So I didn't really spend too much time on these earlier when we were going over access points because they have been around for at least a year now, a year and a half maybe. But there are two options. There's the standard mesh, which is this one that you see here, and it has these two antenna connectors, and it includes these omnidirectional antennas. You can physically manipulate the antennas and move them a little bit to kind of get better coverage, and they do have some additional, you know, options that if you needed a directional antenna instead of omnidirectional antenna, they have that option. But these ones are made to be mounted on the walls. And the antennas, you can manipulate them a little bit to change the coverage pattern. And then the other option in the Unifi mesh would be the Mesh Pro, which is this one that you're seeing. Looks very similar to a wall plate access point, like for hospitality, but it doesn't have any additional Ethernet ports on it, like a wall plate access point does. It is outdoor rated, so both of these options are outdoor rated. They were kind of designed to be outdoor access points, but they're the only wall mounted options that Ubiquiti offers. So their coverage patterns are going to be optimized for wall mount, to being wall mounted. Whereas the other ones, if you just kind of turn them on their side, then you're kind of getting the sideways donut that's not covering as much area. It's going up and down way more than it needs to into the ceiling and into the floor, if you were to mount one of the standard access points on the wall. This one is going to be omnidirectional, so you're still going to get kind of a donut around it of wireless, but it's made to be oriented on its side on the wall, and it's still going to give you that coverage pattern. So.
All right. Yeah, when we first got all of our product in the barn, and we were looking at the first time we saw this thing, so we were expecting it to be small, like a deck of cards or a wall plate, and then we pull it out, and so it's the size of like an iPad Mini. It's still pretty small form factor, especially for the performance, but it was like the other one is tiny, and this one
the
is,
standard mesh, yeah, these guys
but
are
this
very
one,
small.
yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little big guy. So Brian, who works at our office, he's got one of these that covers his backyard, and he said he bolted it to the backside of one of his downspouts to hide it so that it
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't stand out on his trim or on his
Yeah,
the surface of his house. So he's like,
yeah,
I just fabricated a strap like you'd put on the downspout to hold the downspout in place. He's like, and I just mounted the thing to it, and it works
yep,
perfectly. So
yep,
and it
yeah.
hides it.
No, they're good. They do have that kind of low profile, minimal aesthetic, which is nice. Some of the other, well, the indoor ones, they're made to, be on the ceiling, so they're different. But yeah, these for outdoor, they're very low profile, and they're easy to install and use.
Okay, we do have some questions here. I want to get through them.
Of course.
Let me see. Yeah, Michael just said the exact same thing about the Mesh Pro. Yeah, definitely, Michael. It's absolutely, it's the size of like an iPad Mini. It's a larger form factor than the other product. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely wanted to clarify on that one. Let me see. So 4 or 5 people are asking us if we can get that that Excel spreadsheet that covers the differences of the access points? And then
Yep.
also the follow-up question to that is there something similar on the gateways that helps
Yeah.
us determine when it's time to go from a standard gateway to the Gateway Pro?
Yeah, sure. So let me actually, why don't I just bring the actual spreadsheet up onto the screen here? So I
And
could send this,
also, I know
I
you have
could,
a second screen going there. If you can send that to my email, I'll drop it in the handouts of
absolutely.
the platform today, and people can download it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just stay with us, folks, and we'll have that loaded up in just a
Yeah,
few minutes.
I can
In
do
the
that.
meantime, we can start going through these.
Yeah, so just give me a sec. Is that
Sure.
training team at AllNet?
No, Rick.Murphy at AllNet Distributing.
Got it. Sorry, Rick.
That's okay.
There you are. Okay. Product matrix attached. So you can see here, this was the access point that matrix that we were looking at earlier. There is also a tab at the bottom here for the switches. Excuse me, and then our security gateways. You see the standard USG and the USG Pro 4. So the key points knowing when to upgrade really is going to be clients. So you can see there's a pretty significant gap there, from 200 up to 2000. But for the price point, really, I mean, if you had 201 users, you could probably still get away with the USG. If you're getting closer to, 250 or so, then it's probably time to upgrade. That also obviously depends on what everyone's doing on the network. So those numbers are not hard caps, but they're suggested limits. So you can get an idea there. Unless they give you specific specs that they want it to meet, that's when you would kind of use the rest of these specs here. But I don't think too many people select their firewall based on how much memory it has. They kind of just think about how many users they need to support. So up here, client support, quick rule of thumb on which one you should go with. Let me just send this over here. 1 second. The copy that I'm sending you may still have there was a third option here that's no longer available. I deleted it to use in my slide. So if you do see the USG XG8 on your copy, it's no longer available. It should say discontinued right next to it. We were pretty disappointed when that one went away because there's no 10 gig option anymore. But yeah, so there's your security gateways. We also have the cloud keys here. This is the old Gen 1 model, Gen 2, Gen 2 Plus. This product right here was unfortunately discontinued earlier this year. We're really hoping they bring it back because I mentioned earlier, once you get up to those limits of the access point and cameras for the Gen 2 Plus, you'd have to build your own server. Well, there used to be a pre-built option that could accommodate it, but not anymore, unfortunately. So I just sent that over. By all means, everybody, please make good use of it. And any other information that you're not finding there, we can always help you out with that.
Okay, perfect. All right, really quickly, there are a couple of questions here popping up, and several people are asking very similar questions. Is there a design assist help available for complex system design for users that are new to Ubiquiti? Or alternatively, are there paid support options that would give us technical phone support and remote login support from Ubiquiti?
So they do have one support program offering. It's called the Unifi Elite program. I didn't want to spend too much time on it today because it's pretty restrictive with who we're able to sell those licenses to. We're only able to sell the Unifi support licenses to customers that are providing managed services to their end users. So if you are either leasing hardware and then charging the customer, monthly or quarterly support fees, and you're the ones that they call when there's an issue, and you maybe either send someone on site or you remote in and you fix it. Those type of managed service providers would qualify for the program. We unfortunately can't sell it to it. The licenses for this program are not able to be resold. That's the issue with it. So Ubiquiti only allows Ingram Micro to sell them to the person who's going to be using them. So we can only sell them to managed service providers. So if you meet those criteria, you could be eligible for the program. It does afford you, it gets you a 1-800 number to call in for any questions that you might have around the configuration of the product, or if the product's malfunctioning, they can go through troubleshooting with you. And then if it's, you know, a DOA product, they could issue an RMA that way. But the benefits to the program are that 800 number. It is US-based support. They're available, I believe it's 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Mountain Time. They're located in Salt Lake City, Utah. The other benefits you get from the program are the advanced RMA replacement. So it's not a next business day guarantee or anything like that, but it is advanced RMA. So they'll ship out the replacement before they get the defective unit back. And then the last benefit, when you renew Elite service, it renews the hardware warranty of the product. So the products come with a 1-year warranty. If you license them as Elite, it covers, you get the support during that year that the warranty is active. And when the warranty and the Elite expire, if you renew Elite, it also renews the warranty. So if the product were to die, and you had an active Elite subscription on it, you would be able to RMA it for a replacement. Whereas if the product dies outside the 1-year warranty period, if you don't have Elite, you unfortunately have to replace it on your own.
Okay, perfect. All right. So we got a question here about any difference buying Ubiquiti products from Ingram or from AllNet. It's really your preference. If you've already got a relationship with Ingram, I mean, obviously they've got the product available for sale as well. There is no pricing penalty to buy from AllNet, so this is kind of like a master distributor relationship, like we've got with some of our other, product. I mean, obviously we're we sell Sony, we sell Samsung, things like that, and most of these large manufacturers, they don't warehouse products, so the product comes in through the ports, and then it goes to the master distributors around the country, and then it goes from the master distributors to the regional distributors, and that's the role that we serve. And there is no pricing penalty. We buy in, let's just say, very significant volume levels, so
Yep.
there is no penalty. So it's all in what your preference is. But so, like, as I said, so on the call today, we're representing, this call is hosted by AllNet Distributing, and we're also representing the other regional distributors, which would be Volutone Distributing in the Southwest US, Custom Plus Distributing in the Northwest US, MRI Premium in the Northeast US. So, and then obviously we're AllNet here in the Midwest.
Right.
So,
And if any of you guys, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
sure.
if anyone was in need, if you're buying through AllNet, but you still need some help with any solution design or anything like that, I'm sure there may be some people at AllNet that can help you out with that. And if it was anything that maybe that was a little beyond their scope, we also have pre-sales resources here at Ingram. Myself, I'm a pre-sales resource. I'm not super technical, but I do have technical counterparts that could really drill down into the nitty-gritty and make sure that the solution is going to check all the boxes for the customer. So if, regardless of if you're sourcing through AllNet or not, you can come to us for some pre-sales assistance.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's a very strong partnership between our companies, our multiple companies. Okay, so let me see. And also, I think that should address a couple of the other questions were about pre-sales support or pre-sales design, especially for people that are getting started. So feel free to reach out to your regular point of contact with your distributor, and we can help you with this. And if possible, if it's required, we'll loop in the resources that we have available to us from Ingram.
Yep.
And then also, really quickly, do you want to pop up the that resources page with the links that you had?
Yeah.
Maybe like on the slide deck?
Absolutely. I can. I don't necessarily want to send the entire slide deck out, but I can send all of these links.
No, that's fine. Yeah, we can do this via email. Why don't we do this? We'll count on everyone who registered today is going to get a copy of the Excel spreadsheets and the links to all the resource documents, which include the training guides. So we've had a lot of questions about training. There are fee-based training. There are like third-party trainers who Ubiquiti has certified, who have trainings that are hosted regionally, and they're usually like a per seat charge, like in some cases up to like 1,200, $1,500 for a 2-day training.
Yeah.
And, it goes against what we usually, like when we have, we distribute a lot of audio and video products, and we have, Sony or Yamaha or, one of those other partners in the
Right.
building, those are hosted and they're free of charge for the dealer to attend.
Right.
It's really not the case with Ubiquiti. Ubiquiti doesn't have on-staff trainers that go from, region to region
Right.
and conduct these trainings. It's part of what keeps the price points low.
Right.
So that's why we're focusing. We were happy to host the session today
Yeah,
with
for
Michael.
sure.
We're glad to share these resources as well. It's
Yeah,
one of
and
those things where once you get comfortable with the product line, day in, day out, you're not going to need a lot of support.
yeah,
But we
that's
want to
really their
share the
model.
resources with you.
Just to piggyback off that, that's definitely their model. They're a very lean company. Their idea is to get kind of all the information out there on their website and on their social media. The issue is it's not that easy for everyone to find, or if it's a very specific issue they're experiencing, or they need some specific information to make a decision about which product to purchase. They're still getting there with making all the information accessible. All the information exists, but they're definitely still working on that, making it as accessible as possible. And that's where we come in. So any questions at all, anything you can't find, just ping us and we'll point you in the right direction.
Okay, so let's go through some of these questions pretty quickly here.
Yeah.
So on the switches, Josh is asking the partial PoE switches,
Mhm.
such as the like the 850 or 860, I believe, I don't know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
He said, is it PoE plus on the PoE active ports, and also is it a power budget, or are there certain ports that have PoE and certain ports that do not have PoE, or is it a
Right.
power budget that's available and it's just when you hit the limit, you hit the limit?
Right. So for the US-8-60 watt, which you see right here, this is the only partial PoE option on the Unifi line, and it's a total of 60 watts is the entire power budget for the entire switch. So you subtract out the switch itself eats up, I think it was 12 watts for this model. So that would leave you with 48 watts that can be switched, or that can be divided up between any of, however many PoE ports you have. Obviously then, depending on what your device you're using, if you're using a VoIP phone that only needs 4 watts power, great. If you're using a security camera that needs exactly 15.4 watts, because these are 802.3 AF, so up to 15.4 watts, you couldn't populate all 4 ports with a max PoE device, because you're going to run out of power. So it is a power budget that's available to be split between the 4 ports.
Okay, and then obviously with the graphic here, we can see it's very clearly marked which ones have PoE
Yep.
capability and which ones do not. So
Yep. And
Josh, as you're punching
that's
down, just be careful
physically,
to note which ones are which.
yeah, and it's physically printed on the switch itself actually as well. So when you receive the unit, there's no confusion about which ones are PoE.
Perfect. Okay. Let me see. So Richard's asking questions about Airmax. He goes, "Is there we discussed some kind of the maximum
Hmm.
ranges for some of the different products?" He said, "Is there a
Yeah.
minimum spec if we needed to cross an alley from a garage to a home?"
Yeah. So what we usually tell people as a general rule of thumb for Airmax is 50 feet. So I mentioned earlier the minimum for Airfiber was about 100 feet. That's a general rule of thumb, a general guideline. We did actually deploy a couple of these NanoBeam AC units in our tech support lab, I think last month. One in one corner of the room and one in the other corner of the room, and they were about 20 feet apart, and we got great connection, maximum speeds. So they can work closer than that. Ubiquiti doesn't actually publish the minimum distance. But the good part with this product is you can control how much power it's outputting. So if you absolutely needed it, where there were, let's say, a very small alley, they're 10 feet away from each other, you might not be able to get, if you have the signal turned all the way down, you may not get the full bandwidth, the full throughput, but you'll still get a connection and you'll still get, some throughput. So general rule of thumb, let's say 30 feet is the minimum for the Airmax products, because like I said, we did it in our lab at about 20 feet and they worked great. But you know, any closer than that, I couldn't guarantee myself, and you might not get the full performance that's advertised.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me see. All right, so David said on your slide deck, we're talking about the US-24.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted a clarification whether the ports for expansion are SPF or SPF plus.
Great question. Actually, I'm actually going to go to the website for this one. So we'll
Yeah, I
go
think
to.
I think it sounded like he was curious because the website looked like it had different information than the slide deck.
Sure, sure, sure. So the 24 port switches, and I'll show you. So here we have PoE and non-PoE. I don't know why they separate them on the website, but they do. So if we're gonna look at the PoE options, the website's a great resource too. It's just, you know, more clicks to get to the specs that you need than my spreadsheet is. But you can see here our 24 port options. No SFP plus ports. They have SFP. They have 2 gigabit SFP ports. And then our 48 port options have 2 SFP plus ports and 2 gigabit SFP ports. And that's going to be the same, should be the same for the non-PoE options. Yep, 24 port just has gigabit SFP. And then the 48, you've got 2 SFP plus and 2 SFP.
All right, David, you win the Sharp Eye of the Day prize. Unfortunately, there is no prize, but congratulations anyway. Okay. Let me see. Connor asks, how do you recommend managing large numbers of sites? We manage over 100 Unifi networks for our various clients. That site dropdown gets very crowded very fast. Is there a better way to manage a large number of sites?
So we've had some customers that we've worked with. We worked with one managed service provider that was servicing a couple hundred car dealerships across the country, and what they did was, because they were nationwide, they broke it up into regions. Excuse me, regionally. So they did Northwest, Southwest, Midwest, and then Northeast and Southeast. And they would have, I think they rented some AWS servers in each region, and then they tied all their local clients to those specific regional kind of those regional servers. So that's how they did it. I would still imagine though their drop-down menu probably got pretty cluttered as well, because even within those regions they were dealing with dozens, if not maybe 100 or so clients in each region. So as far as I know, unless you were to break it up with different people's credentials and have certain, if you were having certain people in charge of managing certain clients, because the interface that you get, the sites that you get access to are dictated by, I mean, what sites you import under your credentials. Now you can always add users that are able to access this. So say you had one master user, and then you had several admins under that master user, or if they call them a super admin, I forget the terminology they use in here, but you could have certain users only have read access. So maybe you have the local shop owner just wants to, you know, you don't want him changing anything, but if he wants to get on his network and see, you know, what's going on, he can view it. So you can add different users, and you could add management, like admin users that are responsible for certain sites, and you could delegate which sites that user has access to. So then in their interface, when they log in with their username and password, they wouldn't get all the sites that are associated with like the master account, but they would get a sites that are delegated to them. So that could be maybe one way to kind of break it up by who's physically managing them. You know, even if it wasn't an individual, say you had a team of people that used the same credentials and that team was responsible for one region or one group of customers, you could potentially do it that way. But that would kind of be my recommendation. I'll be completely honest, I don't have a ton of experience myself with managing multiple users. I manage my own network at home with these products, and I go through the demo like this with customers. I've personally never seen the list more than like 5 or 6 sites. But yeah, I would say try to break it up by who's managing it would be one way to do it.
Okay. All right. So we've got a question here from Dennis that's near and dear to my heart because it's something that I just reviewed. Brian is our kind of our internal Ubiquiti specialist, and
Hmm.
he and I had a long conversation a short while ago about this question. Do you need a controller, aka cloud key, for a small residential job with say 4 access points?
So you don't need a cloud key. You could download the software that's available on Ubiquiti's website, and install it on your own machine, whether it be a desktop computer or a server, um, and then that piece of hardware would essentially become a cloud key pretty much. Because so the cloud key, all the cloud key is it's basically a Raspberry Pi. It's a micro server running Linux, and then it comes with the controller software preloaded on it. If it's the Gen 2 Plus, it has the controller software and the Unifi Protect software. So if you were to just download the software and install it on your own machine and use that as your host, you could manage everything through that. And that's what we recommend for customers that have larger deployments beyond what a cloud key is capable of.
Okay. And I would say, for your own home, that's probably fine, but for a paying customer, I would definitely put it in a cloud key. So the way that Brian described it to me, it's
Yeah.
kind of like when you're doing a camera system, if you log in and you look at the cameras, you can see what's happening on the cameras real time. But when you
Hmm.
log out, if there's an event, it didn't get logged because if there's no NVR in the system. So he kind of described it to me as like this is also a remote logging device, so it's going to show like as what's happening on the network. And if you
Sure.
get a call from the homeowner that says, "Hey, our Wi-Fi dropped out for about 45 minutes yesterday," and it seems like it happens. So if you log in to try to remotely troubleshoot that system, having that cloud key, you're going to see what's happening versus it. Again, the camera analogy is you're only going to see what's happening when you're logged in. If you're not logged
Right.
in 24/7, you're not seeing what's happening
Right.
24/7. And it
And
seems
that's
like kind
the
of a low cost
yeah,
a low cost solution to have the 24/7 on-site remote management.
for sure. For sure. The cloud key is going to be like the most cost effective way to have a wireless controller or an NVR for your cameras. Because to your point, you're absolutely right. If the software is not running, you're not collecting any data on your on your network traffic, and you won't be capturing the video feed. So when I'm saying you need to download the software and install it on your own machine, I'm sorry, it was implied, but I did not explicitly say that machine needs to be up and running all the time, and the software needs to be running all the time. So that's what the cloud key is going to be doing for you. So if they're not in a situation where they can devote either existing resources on hardware that they have or buy new resources, like if they can't do that, the cloud key is the lowest cost, the most cost effective way to just get everything covered on your network. The biggest thing, there's certain features in the Unifi controller that if you don't need them, that you're certain features that are going to be missing if the software is not running all the time. Features such as captive portal. So if you're a hotel and you get free low speed, and then if you want to pay $5 a day, you can get high speed, or you just have to enter your email address and then you get access to the high speed internet for free. Whatever it is, that type of captive portal where you're collecting user data, that needs a constant connection to the controller software. So if you have a cloud key, that's the easiest way to do it. Otherwise, install the software on a machine, but then that machine's got to be up and running all the time for the captive portal to be working. Same thing with Active Directory authentication. It needs to be running and have access to the Active Directory to authenticate user credentials to let them on the network. If you're just doing at your house, if you're just doing a WPA2 single password for the network, so everyone uses the same password, that does not need the cloud key to a constant connection to the controller software. So certain features require it. If none of those features, if you're not using any of those features, then you don't necessarily need the cloud key all the time. But a lot of those features are pretty cool to have. So I recommend it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I've gotten this question from two different users here, two different participants, about clients and homeowners who are more hands-on, giving them management access. Is there a way to do um, a lower credential that only gives access to one or two projects? So, and is there a way to do this without giving them full access of the project? Basically, just give them like some monitoring, rebooting, kind of just some really basic troubleshooting type stuff.
So it's a good question. There's let's get to our settings tab here. So if you're to go into admins, let's go, Michael, angermicro.com. And I'm doing this, so here, read only or administrator. So read only, so there's only two options, unfortunately. Although it's allowing, you can do read only and then allow them here. So my impression was, this is getting a little bit beyond my expertise, but my my impression was it was either all or nothing. So if you're an administrator, you have full access to management for whatever site you're an administrator for. So you can separate them by site. So you can make someone an admin for only, if it's a home user, like you said, for only their home, and allow them full access for that. Or you can allow just read-only access. But now I think that may have changed because it appears you could say read-only and then allow certain permissions here. So one thing about this interface, they are constantly updating it. Like it's rarely, I do probably 2 or 3 of these demos a month. Not on this scale that AllNet's brought to us, but for individual customers. And I'd say at least half the time I go in, there's a new feature added. So they may have changed the granularity that you're able to delegate access to. So I'll do a little research on that and I can follow up.
Okay, so the answer is definitely a strong, firm maybe.
Yeah.
You could definitely give them
Yeah.
management, but unfortunately, it might be full-blown management where they can go in and
Yeah.
blow everything up.
Yeah.
So we may
It can be
not
kind of
want to do
tricky.
that.
You might not
Okay,
want to. It depends on the user, obviously. But I'll look into that and I can follow up with you after this.
sure, thanks. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So Tom asked a question about the Unify access points. He said on the slide it said no for PO injectors, but he said the multi-packs absolutely don't come with PO injectors, but sometimes when you buy single packs, they have PO injectors in the box. I'll be honest with you, I don't know because I don't. I mean, we're mostly like a box. Boxes come
Hmm.
in, boxes go out, and I don't
Yeah. Yeah. I hear
necessarily
you.
unbox a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Yeah. So the single pack access points will all include PoE injectors, and I can show you where you can find that information. If you were to go to, I just picked the HD option here, and then if we go to the quick start guide, so there's one of these quick start guides for every Ubiquiti access point, and what it shows you right here on page 2 is the package contents, and it'll show you gigabit PoE adapter with the asterisk included only in the
Perfect.
single pack. So 5 packs and 3 packs. I don't think there are any more 3 packs. I'm sorry. So 5 packs, they do not include PoE injectors. So that's part of the cost savings that you get by buying the 5 packs. And then the singles do have PoE injectors. There was a time, maybe some of the confusion was stemming from last year, the UAP AC Pro, they transitioned to having even the singles of that product not having PoE injectors because they thought none of their no one needed them. And it was a fun 6 months for us explaining that they no longer include PoE injectors, only to have Ubiquiti then change their mind and start shipping them with PoE injectors again. So they've flip-flopped on that already once, and I really hope they don't do it again. But yeah, every single pack access point includes a PoE injector at this time.
Okay, perfect. All right, thanks for the follow-up on that one.
Yeah.
All right, the next question that comes up here from Eric says we use a ton of the UAP ACLR access points. Can we also use the outdoor mesh AP on the same system with single SSID and roaming?
Yes, absolutely. So any of the access point, you can mix and match any of these models together in your environment and duplicate settings across them as far as SSIDs and shared passkeys goes. And they also support seamless roaming between them. So if you have your Unifi mesh access points outside, you've got a couple of UAPAC pros in some of the rooms, you've got an HD in the conference room, and you want to add an in-wall to the conference room to have some Ethernet ports available. All those can be managed through the interface together, and can have the same SSID and seamless roaming between them. One other, this wasn't, you didn't really ask this, but it reminded me, the Unifi Mesh were the first access points on the line card to support wireless meshing. And if anyone's unfamiliar with that, it means if you had, say, you have 5 access points and you're able to pull cable to 4 of them, the 5th one is in a really inconvenient spot to get cable to plug it into the network. You can enable mesh mode on that access point, and it'll actually pick up the wireless signal from another AP and then kind of repeat it. So it's using a wireless connection as its data connection instead of its Ethernet connection. You still need to power the access point, so you'll still need power there. But after the Unifi Mesh were released with this feature, Ubiquiti went and upgraded all of the other access points on the line through firmware upgrades to also support this feature. So any access point, it's not recommended for more than like 10. If you absolutely have to do 1 in every 5 access points wirelessly meshed, that's okay. But it's not recommended to get like really crazy with it, with like 1 access point wired into your network and then 5 other access points meshed off of it, not hardwired. You won't get good results with that. But just a little side tidbit there. It's a cool feature that's supported across the board.
Okay. All right. The next question. Our friend Edgar here in Michigan, he asks, is there a coverage simulator or a heat map mapping software to create Wi-Fi projections with Unifi products?
So no, there's no, Ubiquiti themselves does not offer a heat mapping software. They do have in the network interface that floor plan, the network map that I
Yeah.
showed.
Can you pull that back up, please? Because
Absolutely.
I think that's what I was thinking that was,
Yeah, it looks like
and I
it,
don't know that
but it's
Okay.
unfortunately it's
Yeah.
not. Yeah. This is just so that you can this provide. I'm sorry, that was the wrong one that I clicked. Just bear with me here while this loads. It does look like heat mapping, but it's not. It gives you the floor plan, and you're able to drag and drop the access points onto it, but it doesn't take into account any of the like walls or anything. So it will show you, like, it shows you an image, but that's not really accurate because it's not taking into account any of the walls or materials or anything like that. Um, but yeah, it shows you some, like, a basic approximation of what the wireless coverage is going to look like.
Okay.
Now, what we use in-house here, we do have a heat mapping service we offer. We use the House software. It's great. It has all of the Ubiquiti access points built into it, so you can drag and drop them, and it already knows their coverage patterns. So that's what we use in-house. We do sell the software. I'm sure it's available through AllNet. It's not cheap, but it's a great tool. So that's what we use. And yeah, man, that'd be a cool feature for them to add to the software, but I couldn't see them doing it for free.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So immediately questions popped up. Please name or put that on the screen, please. The name of that software that you just discussed.
Okay, sure. Eka how.
Aha.
So yeah, it's completely separate from Ubiquiti. They're a great company. They make wireless site survey and heat mapping software. So yeah, they actually have the physical product that you would take with you and walk through the environment, and it measures wireless interference. And then they have the software that goes along with it, that allows you to then drag and drop access points onto a floor plan. You specify on the floor plan what the walls are made out of, drywall, brick, whatever, and it'll then estimate how that's going to affect the wireless coverage. So it's really cool, really sophisticated. Like I mentioned, it's not cheap, but once you use it, you realize why it's very sophisticated software. Um, yeah, I can't recommend it enough. And if you're an integrator that's going to go out and do site surveys, I mean, it's a great investment. It's going to more than pay for itself pretty quickly. So.
All right, thank you. All right, so the next one is, all right, Jamie's asking, and this is, I'm not going to mention the other competing product, but Jamie asks on the mesh product, is there a dedicated radio channel for mesh backhaul, or does it use the same channels that it would use to communicate to devices?
Great question. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay,
I'll
well,
have to find out.
there's a product that we have in the building, and it's
Hmm.
uh, I'm not going
That's
to
okay.
yeah. But anyway, it has the third channel, and what it is, it's the European spec of the 5 gig network, the
Okay.
5 gig.
Yeah.
So it's a channel that exists on all these radios. They just happen to turn it on in the U.S. and
Hmm.
they're using the European channel as strictly as backhaul. So obviously in the U.S., the iPads, iPods, whatever that we buy don't
Hmm.
have that
Right.
radio built into them.
Right.
So it's literally using that radio from device to device for backhaul. It's kind of a cool
That's
thing, but
that's very cool. Yeah.
that's yeah, I think that's unique to them, Jamie. I don't think it's part of this line.
I
So
don't. Yeah. I don't believe. I don't believe so. I do think that if you're using the meshing, you're going to lose out on a few channels. So I do think that it shares the channel with what it would normally use for client access. And then if you're meshing it, it'll limit which channels you can select from. But I'll find out, and I have a list here of things I need to follow up with. So I'll find out for you.
okay, sure. All right, and then you and I will chat after the call a little bit.
Absolutely.
All right, so the next question. Speaking of channel selection, I do have a question on channel selection.
Mhm.
What is the best practice for assigning channels? Set them manually per access point, or just leave them all on auto? I get conflicting reports. And then obviously this goes with what we were just talking about with going out and doing site surveys with.
Right.
So does Ekahau have hardware?
They do,
Is that,
yes. Yeah, this
okay.
this product that you're seeing right here is it's like an access point itself, and it measures interfering wire. It measures wireless signals in the environment, so it'll tell you using something like this would tell you which channels that you should be using to avoid interference. I believe with the Ubiquiti solution, if you leave it on auto, it's going to configure the access points to so that they're not interfering with each other, but unless unless you have a specific model, it's not going to be actively scanning for other wireless signals. So one of the products, the SHD, the Unify AP SHD has an additional radio that's completely dedicated to scanning the environment for any rogue access points or interfering radio frequencies. And what this access point can do is not only just scan for them, but then it can immediately take action on them if you allow it to do so. So it will change the channels of its own radios to get around the interfering signals, or it'll isolate those interfering signals and send you a push notification to let there's a rogue access point around. The other access points have this feature, but they don't have that dedicated radio, so you have to go in and actually turn the feature on in the interface, and when you do that, it's taking one radio away from client access. So you're going to lose out on performance for them to be, scanning the environment. Now, in not every, but most deployments that I've been a part of, it's been simple enough where we would have just left it on auto and they've tuned themselves nicely. But I guess it really depends on how large and complex the deployment is as to whether you're going to need to micromanage and manually set every channel there. It kind of varies from case to case, I would say.
Okay. And I would say in like a lot of resi,
Hmm.
most of our clients that our dealer base is serving, these homes are pretty large and they're not exactly stacked on top of each other.
Right.
So they're probably safe to to channel map and then set the channels and leave it alone versus if
Yeah.
they were doing MDU, like let's say a high rise in downtown Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
that traffic's going to be changing on like an hourly basis.
Yeah,
So
for
that might be
sure.
left auto.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Uh, I've got a very specific question. I'll go ahead and pose it. We were having some problems with cloud keys not given a static IP, and after a power outage, we would lose remote access. Is there a way to not have to redo the entire network when this happens?
Hmm.
So are we, what's the best practice for cloud keys? Are we supposed to always set them up on a static IP on each build, or aren't they pinging out to the cloud and then showing up on the cloud?
So the way that it's tricky. So the way that the cloud portion of this solution is a cloud portal that Ubiquiti maintains free of charge, and all your cloud key is doing is pinging that portal, or rather, the portal is pinging your cloud key when you enter your credentials. So if you just go to unify.ui.com, that takes you to, your login page. So when you enter your credentials, the Unify Cloud knows what physical cloud key your credentials are tied to, and it's able to connect you to that cloud key. Obviously, you've already locally gone into the cloud key and enabled cloud access. That's the requirement. So you would go into it locally on your network, enable cloud access, and then it's, the Unify Cloud's able to access it. So now I might be a little confused to the question. They're asking if they lose power and they have to reboot the cloud key and then all their configurations are gone, because that should not necessarily be the case, or they're needing to factory reset the device for some reason.
Okay, Jason, if you're still on, this is your question here that I'm posing. So if you want, um, type in a little bit more of the question, either that or we can just follow up offline afterward. But we can move on and if until Jason types in, or we can just chat with him afterward. But yeah, that sounds like definitely there's a problem if
Yeah.
the entire it's just to not have to redo the entire network. It doesn't sound like the entire network should ever lose its settings.
No, so there are, because you can make configuration changes that are not directly supported by the graphic user interface that you get through the cloud key. You can command line into specific products and make specific configurations that are not necessarily fully supported, but that will still work. For example, um, offloading, say if you had your cloud key and you wanted to set up a recurring backup to like using FTP, you can do that by writing your own custom script. But if if you do a firmware update on the product, that script is now gone and you have to redo it. So that might be what he's asking. And with features that are not fully supported through the GUI, it's just what you're going to have to do for now until they work those features in. Like I said, they're updating the software all the time and there's always new features, so it's possible that and I'm assuming this is what he's asking. He may not even be asking this, but that's the only time I've heard of someone having to kind of like completely like redo their whole configuration.
All right, and I've got a couple more here.
Okay.
Um, oh, okay, all right. Well, actually, we had two different participants are talking about this here. So, Jamie chimed in to say the new cloud keys are much better at dealing with power issues. And so the old cloud keys would sometimes crap out after a power outage and have to be factory reset.
Hmm.
And then Jason, who's the original person posing the question, says after the power is removed, it comes back, the cloud key will choose another IP, which that makes sense because if it's set up as um, dynamic.
Right.
And then it said if the SD card would get corrupted, then we would have to redo the build.
I see. Okay, so within like the part of the cloud key that's actually storing that configuration data. I see. Yeah.
Okay.
To my knowledge, there's no way to necessarily back up a configuration right now. So if you did get if your memory got corrupted, unfortunately you would have to start from scratch. Um, and I apologize. I'm not like a network engineer. More of a product specialist. So I apologize if I'm not really understanding the question or giving you the best answer. But yeah, I've had at my own with my own cloud key, I have had to redo the configuration once when I was first setting it up, but I think it was because I powered it down incorrectly. I think I just unplugged it from the switch and it just shut down. So I'm not 100% sure on that. I apologize.
All right, thank you. So our own Brian is chiming in here. He's pinging my cell phone here.
Okay.
He said the basic cloud key can have that issue. So that's one of the reasons to go to Gen 2. He said always set a static IP on a key, and he said he says you can back up a site config, but I'll ask Brian to elaborate on that a little bit. That'll be part of our follow-up notes.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Yeah, we've had multiple people saying use the second gen cloud key.
Yeah,
It's a difference of a few bucks. So it it's not just about how many additional access points it could do. It's also about it's just a newer generation piece.
for sure.
So yeah, okay.
Definitely.
Let me see here. Another question about Airmax, also from our friend Edgar
Cool.
here in Michigan. He said, Airmax, do these have to be line of sight? Or what if there's an issue with a remote building where there are trees between the buildings?
Yes. Clear line of sight is required for Airmax. Um, there's some ways you can get around that. Um, let's go back to our planning tool. You could potentially, if you had a straight line, like where we needed to get, from here to here, and let's say that there's a tree, there's a forest right here or something. I mean, you could potentially go, to a different side like this. You could do that. You could potentially add more points to make it a common. So these points that I've selected aren't really ideal for this angle, but you kind of get the idea. You could, instead of going through the obstruction, you could go around it using one of the point to multi-point radios. I mentioned earlier I mentioned Airmax was point to multi-point. This tool is really good because, like you saw, I just dropped in a point on the map and I hit add point to multi-point, and that automatically populates this device list with the multi-point base station. So all of these options are recommended for multi-point, like as like a base station with multiple streams coming back. So for something like that, I usually would recommend, if there's no way to clear the line of sight, if there's any way to go around it, you can do it that way using a multi-point solution. But yeah, or if you're able to elevate the unit high enough over the obstruction, you can do it that way. Obviously, you can't, stick a 30-foot pole up on top of a building, depending on how high it is. Certain situations are going to dictate what you can do with the solution and what you can't. But that'd be my recommendation. The kind of the multi-point, you can go around the obstruction. But yeah, you do need clear line of sight. Some of the Airfiber radios, if you have very light tree coverage, the signal may still be able to penetrate. With the Airmax, you still might get somewhat of a signal if there's some light tree coverage, but no guarantees it'll work. We always make it very clear with our customers that clear line of sight is a requirement. If you want to kind of roll the dice and try it, if there's a few trees in the way here and there, or only partially in the way, you may still get some signal, but maybe it's not the full strength that you would get if it was completely clear line of sight. So general rule of thumb, clear line of sight.
Okay, thanks. I know we've got we're like I said, we're here in the northern Midwest. So, and I happen to be sitting in a building just outside of Detroit where we serve
Hmm.
the entire state of Michigan. There are
Yeah.
people up in the north, like the kind of the vacation lands of Michigan,
Right.
where there's not a lot of coverage of any type, and they use um, Wi-Fi for everything because I mean, you can't sometimes you can't even get uh, like off the air. There's no cable service, and you can't even get
Right.
off the air off the air television in some of these places.
Hmm.
So they'll use something like the Airmax devices or maybe the Airfiber devices and just shoot for, all the way across, and they'll do lake houses, and they'll do like 8 houses on one shore of a lake from the other side of a lake.
Hmm.
Just crazy stuff like that. So we
Yeah.
saw a lot of
No,
the stuff. We saw a lot
it's
of the stuff up in the remote areas,
yeah.
and uh, it it solves a lot of problems for these guys. They really
Yeah,
like it.
for sure. Yeah, I've sold a lot of Airmax into the Dakotas. Actually, I had one reseller partner that had an end user that was just outfitting everyone he knew, and I think it was in South Dakota with some Airmax units. I guess starting up a little ISP or something like that, and we were shipping them there all the time. So remote rural areas, it's ideal for. Airmax is great for smaller. You're limited to half a gig of wireless throughput with the Airmax. And then if you're using a wireless base station, obviously, that's going to kind of bottleneck you a little bit if you're receiving multiple signals back. It's going to alternate between those, and it's going to cut down the total bandwidth a little bit. But yeah, no, that's exactly what their kind of intended use is.
Okay. All right. We had two people reply about the backup comment. Jamie and then Brian have also chimed in. They both said you save the config on your laptop or your machine, and you can restore it as long as you have the current config backed up. So sounds like it's possible, but
Okay.
anyway, it's certainly I think the best practice, especially for our high level resi guys where the client's already spending significant amounts of money, is don't skimp out on the cloud key by the Gen 2.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Um, let's see. I'm trying to figure out the question. So most of these questions have already been addressed. Oh, here's one that we missed. David. Um, David was our eagle eye from earlier. Now he's asking questions about Edge router. So again, we didn't, Edge is a smaller portion of what we do.
Hmm.
We sell a lot more Unified than we do Edge, but we do sell Edge. He's asking on the Edge router, is there a significant difference between the 1.10.x firmware and the new 2.0.x firmware build?
I couldn't tell you. I'm not I don't have that level of experience with these products, unfortunately. I don't.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I would say sounds like 1.1 to 2.0. Yeah, probably is something significant if they went up to 2.0. But
Yeah.
I couldn't say for sure. I'm sorry.
This might be a time, David, to get involved with the Ubiquiti community. There are probably some people on there that have significant experience with
Oh,
that
for sure.
level of question.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So one of the questions is Unified Lighting Initiative still a thing, or is that pretty much dead?
No,
That's a
it's
tough
still a
question,
thing.
Connor. Okay,
Still a
so it's
thing.
still a thing.
They got the Unify LED and the dimmer switch. I think they did actually just release a couple of additional options, if I remember correctly. I'm just checking my internal inventory here real quick. ULED. Uh, let's see. I think they actually just released 2 new versions of it. And we've got ULED AT and ULED AC. So, oh no, I'm sorry. That was just yeah, PoE options or AC power options. They're still available. They haven't exactly exploded in popularity, but we do sell some of them. Yeah, I don't think they're not getting rid of them anytime soon. It's a good product. It works well. I just think that it maybe just hasn't necessarily caught on yet.
Okay. All right. And this is a pretty deep dive question here about Unify. So How do you deal with multicast, Bonjour, UPnP across multiple subnets? This is particularly relevant to large clients. We have a large number of devices on one network. This applied specifically to services like Sonos. There doesn't seem to be proper support for this inside the Unifi lineup? Question mark. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's definitely beyond my level of expertise to answer that.
Yeah.
Um,
I will say we sell gazillions of dollars worth of Sonos,
mhm.
and many of these high-level Sonos installs with not just like 2 or 3 devices, but dozens, plural, dozens of devices are on Ubiquiti. And if there were a major hiccup, I think I would know about it very quickly. If you have specific questions, we can address them. I mean, obviously, we're a provider for both pieces, so we can talk to both sides and see if we can figure that out.
And that's something that I could always potentially um, loop in one of my pre-sales technical support specialists that are better equipped to speak to these type of deep dive technical questions. And maybe they may not necessarily be able to help you troubleshoot what you have going on currently, but they could definitely find all of the available information and documentation about what is or isn't possible through the interface. So that sounds like a question more for that group. And if that's something that we need to do, we can always set a call up for that.
Sure. Okay. All right. I think maybe I had 1 or 2. Okay. So speaking of multicasting, can you speak to Ubiquiti and use for um, home automation products like Control 4 with a need for multicasting? One of the vendors specifically said that it's not recommended because of a lack of support for multicasting. I think this is something where we need more detail because, again, I know dozens of integrators who are doing hundreds of jobs with that specific product with this network hardware. So let's, Aaron and Rod, let's take these questions offline and we'll see if we can't get you some in touch with some resources and we can't solve whatever issues you're having. Okay. Ray, thanks for the comment. Ray says good session. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Ray.
All right. One more person says, yes, the new cloud keys are fantastic. And then questions about when will the recording be available? So the recording is done. That's our side. And the recording is going to be, I guess, give it like 5 to 7 days. So that comes across as a raw file, and we just have to kind of groom it, and remove the intro and the outro or whatever, and then put our header on it, and then upload it to YouTube. So we just have to find time to do it. Sometimes it takes a few days before we have a window of time where we can do that. So we'll send it out to everyone who registered. All right. Anything else going on here? Mike, I think we finally got to the end.
Awesome.
And let's look at our clock. Holy cow, we went over by 45 minutes today.
Yeah, we did. That's okay.
We knew it.
You know, I knew
it
we
was
had to
going to happen.
reschedule this already once, and I was not about to cut it short. So I just wanted to make sure we got everyone's, at least we fielded everyone's questions. And again, I apologize for the questions that I was not able to answer. I am more of a sales specialist than a technical engineer or anything like that. So whatever questions we need to follow up with, if you want to shoot me like a summary, and I'm happy to bounce them off of my tech guys here in the office and see what they come back with.
Okay. And both of the vendors that were specifically listed are vendors that we work with, so I can pull some resources from them directly as well. And so, yeah, as luck would have it, I have the ability to run the report on the questions that were asked, so we can definitely do some follow up. And so everyone who registered, and certainly everyone who attended, is going to get a copy of the spreadsheet that we discussed, a copy of the resource links that we discussed, and the specific people who asked specific questions about the cloud key backup, or about Control 4, Sonos, etc., we will follow up with you directly as well. So with that, Michael, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to give us a presentation.
Yeah, my
And
pleasure.
everyone on the call, thank you very much for giving us your time today. We really appreciate this. We know that it's we're coming up in the busiest season for our community, so we know that it's that this is an important time for you. So thank you very much for spending the time with us. Michael, any last words?
No, thank you everybody for your time and your interest in Ubiquiti, and we look forward to doing business together. Thanks.
Okay, thanks everyone for your time. We're going to go ahead and end the webinar now.